If you are confused about what to do next in your career and you're feeling stuck and you haven't had a feeling of regular feedback and success and you're not feeling confident about where you're going and you don't know what's next, you'll benefit from career exploration and career decision making. It's hard not to be like directing this back toward my experience and what I would have wanted. And this is what I'm developing for people who were in similar situations that I was in. I was confused. I did feel trapped. I felt the pressure of having to make money, but it was unsustainable because it's depressing when you're not in a position that energizes you. It's harder to wake up every day and you're going into a role and it's just like this isn't good. So what I sought to create was a process that's based on the best science that we know and an easy facilitation through that process so that you can realize all of the gifts that you have inside of you and apply them to something that's exciting, that does give you energy. What you'll get out of that process is a whole bunch of insight into who you are and what your career preferences look like so that you can use those pieces to inform your next career move. And the big benefit of that insight in that model is that you don't get to use it just now. You get to come back to this years down the road and consider how much are these things still important to me and have these pieces shifted. And so it's a really valuable tool that can be used for navigation. The first piece of this exploration process is really understanding who you are. And that gets informed with a short writing exercise that I like to have people do. And that has coverage of your interests and your passions through the years. We break out your experiences by decade, beginning with you as a kid. Where'd you grow up? What were you into? And then moving into you as a teen and the bigger issues that you've moved through to today. And that allows me to ask some strong follow-up questions to search for clues that we'll be bringing forward into our model that we're building of you and your preferences. The second thing we'll do together is have you complete some grade assessments. And the first couple relate to your personality. One of them is based on the big five factor model of personality. It's the most well studied model of personality with some interesting outcomes from each of those big five facets of personality that allow me to consider what facets that you score highly on or very low on that relate to work settings and contexts that would be strong fits for you and those that will not work well at all for you. The other model of personality is the Myers-Briggs, and it's not scientifically valid, but love using it for creative conversation and the feedback you can get through those more detailed descriptions. It's also helpful to understand what contexts may be better fits for you, what really lands for you. We'll be moving from there into your skills that you have that you want to be using more of. And we've got a motivated skills exercise that is simple and easy to complete and really informative as well. The fourth assessment that we'll be moving through is a strength finding assessment. That's from Gallup. There's 34 different strengths that people have, and there's a lot of value in focusing on what you're best at. And we'll think about how to combine each of your top five strengths into some compelling options and settings. There's so much information that we have at this point. So we've got a lot of clues from our first review of your background and your history, your personality, your skills, and your strengths. And we've got a way to organize all of it. And then we'll work together to describe your preferences well and ensure that there's limited overlap between each of your preferences and then weigh them against each other. The next step is sort of when I turn into an optometrist and then I ask you preference A or preference B. Which one of these do you see more clearly and is more important to you? And so we'll be weighing all of your preferences. Let's say you're between these 6 and 8 preferences that we've developed. Which of them is jumping out to you as most important and which is least important, but still important, so that we'll be able to use those variable weightings to be really detailed about which options that we'll be considering line up best. So now that we've got a well-described set of your preferences and a strong model of you, the next step that we're moving into is creativity. And we need to be generating many, many different options that could possibly fit the model that we built. And so to do that, there are a few activities that I like to use. One of them is constrained creative conversation. And so we'll take your top 3 criteria and coach you on how to have creative conversations with people who know you well and pulling out the best pieces or roles or what comes to mind for those people when they think of you in relation to your top 3 or 4 criteria that we've identified. After that, we'll have you complete one last assessment, which is a career interest inventory. So there's a lot of data that links job satisfaction to 6 dimensions: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So based on how you score on those dimensions, I'll coach you on how to use a multi-factor search engine that will output another list of role options for you to consider. We're also starting to use AI, which you might feel a little cringy about, but it's helpful. And when we're able to feed an AI with clear preferences and criteria, some of the output that it creates can be useful. And so we've started to use both Google Bard and ChatGPT to inform this list even further. And then I will also work with you in the session and in between session to crunch through your preferences as well and populate that list with my thoughts for what could be strong candidates as well to increase the amount of roles that we have under consideration. Now that we've got this model of you, your preferences weighted against each other, and we've got a strong list of options to consider, we're getting into the evaluation phase now. And that's the point at which we'll apply this lens of judgment. And we'll first apply it to reduce the list of options and condense that list. Then we'll weigh each of your options against your preferences. And we use a blend of intuition and logic at this point to get outside of your own head so that the model that we're using can crunch through and present you with an ordered list of your top options. And usually at this point, we'll wind up asking you what you think of these top few options. And almost always there's a big level of relief and excitement to jump into the next phase. At this point, we'll coach you to activate your network, connect with our network, research the different roles that come up. And then based on that, we'll come back together into our next step to create a plan of how would you get yourself into that position? So sometimes it would be experience building, more informational interviews, volunteering, getting certain credentials, considering how to be going back to school, what programs to be attending, so that you can move confidently forward along on your path.